West Virginia's highest peak, a very popular 425 million year old vertical rock cliff, and a top secret community run by the Navy. I'm Wayne Worth and you're watching On the Road in West Virginia, our 55 counties, Pendleton County. Long before there was ever a Navy or a naval base in what is today Pendleton County, much of this area was a rugged wilderness. Now, many of the early white settlers to the region were of German descent and found the county's rugged terrain very attractive and familiar to what they were accustomed to back in their homeland. However, many of them during the 1740s and 1750s also found out that living on the same land that the natives deem as sacred hunting grounds sure didn't improve their average life expectancy or the quality of life of their settlement. So forts were constructed in the area to protect early settlers from Indian raids, one in Germany Valley called Hinkle's Fort, one in Upper Tract, and the most notable one, Fort Sybert, where a Delaware chief named Killbuck captured 41 settlers, killing 17 of them. Since 1969, the annual Treasure Mountain Festival in Franklin is held to remember the settlers who were captured by the natives along with their treasures and possessions they had at that time, which legend has it after stolen were hidden by the natives somewhere in South Fork Mountain. When peace finally made its way to the region during the late 1700s, Pendleton County would see a surge in agricultural-based industries, as the population between 1790 and 1860 would increase by over 3,600. Now, most of you are probably like, come on Wayne, a population growth of 3,600 people in 70 years should be a piece of cake for a developing region. However, this is Pendleton County in the early 19th century where accessibility to this region was not even close to where it is today. This didn't stop people though from taking full advantage of the potential farmland along the county's three major rivers as raising cattle became a major industry. Even McCoy's Mill was supplying flour and meal to Lord Dunmore's soldiers in 1774 and would stay in full operation until the middle part of the 20th century where it became a furniture workshop and then a bed and breakfast until 2010. The American Civil War would bring small skirmishes to the region as people were fiercely divided in their loyalties. However, in a rural place like Pendleton County, the war was more personal. Personal in the fact that brother versus brother was literally a reality here in the county, as prominent resident James Boggs was a brigadier general for the Confederate Army and his brother John Boggs fought for the Union cause as a captain of the local Home Guard. Now, this seemed to be the story throughout much of the county as families, depending on where they lived, would either support the Union or the Confederacy. At any rate, this sort of personal division amongst neighbors and family and a relatively active Union Home Guard resulted in widespread guerrilla warfare throughout the county. After the war, Pendleton County delegate to the West Virginia legislature and Union Army veteran William Flick would change the political dynamics in our state for years to come as he would introduce what would become the Flick Amendment, which would ultimately restore voting rights for ex-Confederates by 1870. The 20th century would bring some unique changes to Pendleton County as the federal government would play an active role in the function of the county's economy for years to come. It all started with the first large-scale timber boom during the late 1800s and early 1900s as just about all of West Virginia, including Pendleton County, was deforested, which resulted in frequent flooding that would devastate towns and communities along both the Ohio River and Potomac River basins. That is when the federal government stepped in 1911 with the Weeks Act, which authorized the purchase of forest lands to initiate conservation efforts to protect watersheds. What ensued was the creation of both the George Washington National Forest in 1917 on the county's eastern fringe and the Monongahela National Forest in 1920 on the county's western fringe. Though this measure halted any future large-scale timbering, in return it opened up many doors in tourism, as Spruce Knob, which by the way is our state's highest point in elevation, and Seneca Rocks, which has become a destination for mountain climbers on the East Coast, were both designated as national recreational areas by Congress in 1965. Seneca Rocks during World War II was even used by the Army's 10th Mountain Division to prepare soldiers for the difficulties of mountain warfare. Now, the military would also have an influence on the southern end of the county during the 1960s as the U.S. Navy built a base at Sugar Grove. For 50 years, the base essentially served as a communications post and research center. Well, that was until press reports were leaked to the public that the base was also being used as an electronic listening post for the National Security Agency. What resulted was the Navy decommissioning the base in 2015 and auctioning it to the highest bidder. As for the rest of the county, its population would decline sharply after World War II, mainly because many of the soldiers from the area who fought in the war and folks who left the area to work in factories that supported the war effort settled in other regions of the country where there were more economic opportunities. Even with the decline in population, Pendleton County, with all its natural wonders, is still today one of our state's most popular tourist destinations. And with 3 beautiful rivers running through it, even the fishing is good. I'm Wayne Worth, and until next time, always remember, what we value and hold important to our lives today came from events that happened yesterday, and it's when we begin to understand the events of yesterday that we fully embrace today, which makes tomorrow become less of a mystery. West Virginia's highest peak, a very popular 425 million year old river